Hi, good morning. We are at Masque today. This is not just Mumbai's but India's best restaurant. It has been on the number one position in the Asia's 50 best list and also on the 21st position on the Asia 50's best list for the last year or so. But we don't need Asia's 50 best lists to tell us how Masque changed the culinary landscape of Mumbai and added this kind of innovation to restaurants, to the whole idea of cooking. And with me today is Chef Varun. He's just joined. He's been with Masque right from the time he started his career, but he's just taken over as the head chef at Masque. Welcome to TravelDine.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for being here. Varun, tell us about your journey with Masque. I mean, from what I read, you started your career at Masque itself, unless I'm mistaken.
I wouldn't like to say that. I interned at a lot of places and I worked at a lot of places before. But I would say this is where I went from a cook to a chef. And in my professional career, this is where I grew up almost. And I learned everything here. And I wouldn't say I started my career with it, but the meaningful part of my career was here.
Varun, what has your journey been? What are your memories as a young chef young chef or cook that you joined Masque in, while there's been a journey, but what are your early memories of the restaurant? And
my journey till here was, I always wanted to be a chef. Looking at me, you can tell I like to eat. Food always intrigued me and food was only something that I was interested in. So I always, as a kid, kept telling my parents that I'll become a chef one day and I want to join the restaurant industry. And then when the time came for me to actually make a decision, that is the only thing I had thought about till then. So I tried my best. I tried interning at a few kitchens just to see if this is what I want to do. I did a culinary bachelor's in culinary in India and then in New York. I did an associate's degree in New York, and when I came back after working at a few places, I decided to join Masque. And my journey with Masque is the way it started is something that I would like to keep as not a mission of Masque, but something that I would like to do as well, which is where myths were broken for me as well. While I was studying in America, I used to always think that, this ingredient is not available back home, that is not available back home. But I was proven wrong at Masque. When I came at Masque, 90% of those ingredients that I saw and spoke about, all of them were available in India. It was just that they were available in small micro villages all around the country and they never reached urban cities. So me growing up in a city like Mumbai, I didn't see those vegetables and those fruits and that produce reach here. But in Uttarakhand or in Ladakh, all of these ingredients are growing and they're available. So a lot of myths were broken for me that India doesn't grow all of this. And that's what I would like to, while feeding you delicious food and delivering an experience at Masque, I would like to let the guests and the people of the country know that our country has a lot to offer.
Absolutely. And when you said that you thought ingredients were not available in India, but when you were cooking back in America, you must be cooking a different kind of food. And here is, of course, there's a lot of Indian ingredients used on the menu. I won't say that the menu is regional in any way, but there are a lot of Indian ingredients.
Honestly,
largely.
I would say that the menu is regional also.
Okay.
There's two phases. One, we concentrate on obviously highlighting Indian ingredients, but we are also an Indian restaurant. And we also want to highlight regional, traditional Indian dishes and traditions that we all have been following. India is so vast that every household has a different recipe of things. And our goal is to also highlight those traditions and that food and, get different cultures. Every culture has their own beliefs and own way they do things. We want to bring all of that into the experience.
Okay. So, you came back and you started at Masque 6 years ago. What are your memories of the first time you entered the kitchen or working with Chef Pratik, or just kind of going out there and working with the farmers? Because I know that all of you have been going on foraging trips. So how did that kind of change your work also in some ways?
It made me more proud of what we do and of my country, to be honest. It's the people you meet everywhere you go, you know. When we go foraging and we go meet the locals, even if they're not farmers, and we show them an ingredient which for them has been growing all along. They've been eating it since they were born, and it was always there. But when we tell them that this is a super rare ingredient which is trending all over the world and we would like to use this and highlight this, the smile that they get, the pride that they feel, that makes us work towards these things more.
Okay. So what are the ingredients? Can you talk a little bit about the ingredients you've discovered and used in your menu, and what have actually surprised with what you can do with it?
So sea buckthorn is one ingredient that we've been going back to Ladakh for every year since we began. But every year we go back, you find different things. I was recently in Ladakh. If you go to Khardungla, which is the highest motorable, everyone goes there just to be at the highest spot. But the drive from Leh city, if you look left and right, everything green that's growing is edible. Those are wild herbs. So for us, when we go discovering new things, tasting new things, I went to a village called Garkon in Ladakh also. It's in the Aryan Valley, and we discovered these Chinese lantern Cape gooseberries. Cape gooseberries are available everywhere, but these are orange in color, bright orange. And in Ladakh, in the village, it only grows in that village. In the village, they would wear it as ornaments, because the outside cape that we talk about, that doesn't apparently decompose for 25 years. So when they have these mukuts almost that they wear on weddings and festivals and celebrations, and these gooseberries are a part of that as a jewel and not as a fruit that they would eat. But for me, that fruit was so interesting because everyone goes crazy about Cape gooseberries. These are something different, and these taste also so different. So it was almost like we discovered a new ingredient. I went to Tamil Nadu a while back, where we discovered sea urchin or uni. It's been talked about all over the world, Japan and California. It's growing in our backyard and we don't know about it. The way the fishermen are harvesting this, where no equipment, they're just having fun in the water, without even having glasses to look underwater, but still going down there, harvesting it. These are the stories we like to highlight. While finding the ingredients, you find people like this also who are as crazy and as passionate as you are, and that's what drives you, that's what motivates you, that's what inspires you.
Okay, so tell me, now that you've got those gooseberries back and the sea urchin back, what are you doing with it?
So unfortunately, I've not got the sea urchin back, but we will eventually. See, the gooseberries, obviously I didn't get enough to kind of put on the Masque menu. But last week, because like we mentioned, Masque is turning 6. We're doing a lot of collaborations and events to celebrate with not only us but other restaurants as well.
Okay.
So even if it's not always about getting ingredients in quantity where you can possibly run it on the Masque menu for a month and a half. Sometimes when you get smaller quantities, we use them at these special events. We do special dishes with them to highlight, the idea is to let people know that this is growing with us. We have so much to offer.
So, what was your approach to, to the menu at Masque? Of course, we all know it's a 10-course tasting menu. So those are the basics. That a lot of it is foraged and grown on the farms.
Yes.
But in terms of thought-wise, what is your approach to the menu and and the food that you are serving here?
So the thought-wise, the Masque has its own philosophy, right? We want to highlight Indian produce, highlight Indian food, Indian traditions. But also with me coming in, with a chef, it always has to be slightly personal, and that's when you deliver. That's when you deliver the best product. Because if the dish is not personal for me, I won't have that care and that love that I put in. So things that I've grown up eating, nostalgia plays a big role. Things that you enjoy eating play a big role when you make menus. So obviously you'll see a little bit of me on the menu as well. And then it's always not about, so one course we do on the menu right now is also talking about the chocolate industry, the bean to bar industry. When we started out the restaurant in 2016, there was one company taking Indian cacao and making chocolate from bean to bar. But today there are about 15 to 20 that I know of. So I'm sure there are at least 40 to 50 out there. And one course just highlights cacao fruit and the industry from where, how India has seen the growth of cacao. And for me, that course speaks about that. So it's things like this that inspire you and keep you going.
Keep you going. In fact, now that I recall earlier in the conversation, you talked about that you're also regional in some ways because there are some classics that you want to see on the menu. Tell us a little bit about any classics that you have introduced, and if you have introduced them in the pure classic form it was, or what have you done with that?
So one dish I'd like to talk about is from Rajasthan. They do this called khad. It's khad khargosh is the traditional thing.
Which is done that pit
in the
cooking,
pit,
right?
yes.
Pit cooking,
So it can be any game that you kind of hunted. So it was idea was to travel light when you went hunting and to not carry utensils. So the royal families had that option, but the nomads didn't even have that option. So this is done in different categories also with the royals and the nomads. So we saw the traditional version in Rajasthan in July when we were there. So I do something similar where we wrap it. We have a wood-fired smoker in the kitchen. So we wrap it similarly to what they would do. We do quail, and because we're talking about the royal part of the khad, we do little saffron sauce to get royalty in there. What I wouldn't say what I didn't enjoy. What I didn't want to serve was they technically put roti in there also. Yes. And that gets very, it absorbs all the juices, right? So when I saw that happen in Rajasthan, it took me back to my time in Tamil Nadu, where at a Malabar Paratha restaurant, you just go order Malabar Paratha and not curry. They bring a banana leaf in front of you, put the paratha in the center, come with a bucket of curry and then douse the whole paratha in front of you. So when I saw the khad open and I saw that roti, it took me back to this. So what we did at the restaurant is we made a Malabar paratha, and we kind of do cook the meat or the vegetable in khad, the style of khad, and we bring both of these two things together.
So that's two different regions coming together.
Yes, and for me, at least for me, it plays out. It tastes beautiful and it works, because let's be honest, Malabar paratha can go with anything.
And anything. It has to be the Indian classic that should kind of rule.
Yes, so so we're not traditional in any way, but we try to highlight traditional things and keep the traditions going.
So you also speak a lot about nostalgia and going back to your childhood kind of memories. So what part of the menu is inspired by nostalgia or the food you ate in your childhood? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Bombay, but I've been around a little bit. So I was in boarding school in Tamil Nadu for about 6 years. My parents, when I was in boarding school, used to live in Dubai. I went to college in Hyderabad for 3 years and then America for 2 years. So I lived in Puerto Rico while I was there for a little bit as well. So everything has some connection to bring, right? You understand food everywhere. You learn how people eat. And things that you enjoy eating, honestly, that's what it's about, right? Like at the end of the day, how much ever we talk about Masque trying to do this, Masque trying to do that. The core philosophy is that someone coming here should enjoy their meal, should think the food is flavorful, exciting. That's the first step. And that's when then you bring in the experience, the story, the nostalgia, everything is secondary. The food has to be flavorful. And that's what our goal is as well. To, I wouldn't say educate, but to let you know what the country has to offer while giving you an experience and while feeding you flavorful, great food.
Absolutely. So, do you want to talk a little bit about what else went into the making of your first menu at Masque, after you took over?
So, to be very honest, I would say after I took over, not a lot of things have changed because, we were a big part, the whole team was a big part of the menu planning from before as well. Yeah. So, I would obviously it's my style, my voice is coming out more right now, but it was always about a team. It was never about one person.
How would you define your voice or your approach?
I mean, I want to, like I said, eat great food, while having a great time, some good drinks. And, while I'm doing all of that, I'm also getting some information about what my country has to offer. We're telling you stories about traditions, and like, it's simple, it's great, it's fun.
So tell me, do your guests come here, when they're tasting something, a new experimentation, do they kind of speak to you or somebody, the kitchen team, to actually get the back narrative? How important is the back narrative or the story for Indian diners today?
The back narrative is very important, right? Because that is something what we're trying to do as well. So, like I said, for example, when I serve these Cape gooseberries that I spoke about, to tell them that the locals would wear it as an ornament is very important. That's when you'll understand the value of it. When I was trying to, purchase these from the villagers as well, because this was growing in their farms, they were skeptical because they were like, I might not have ornaments. It's like you selling gold. Because that's what it is for them, right? So telling them that it's for the locals, it's considered as jewelry, and you're eating that right now. So that then for example, with the sea urchin, if and when we serve that sea urchin on the menu, to tell them what the fishermen are going through, how they're doing it to bring it to your plate, is very important.
Absolutely.
And now at Masque, people expect that also, They want to know where it's coming from. They want to know what was the thought process behind this. People are coming to Masque not only to eat, but to enjoy and to hear us tell this. And that's what it's about. We don't serve menus. You don't know what you're eating.
Absolutely.
Right?
We don't know what we're eating. It's a
Till
menu that changes,
somebody from the team has to come and, tell you in detail what you're eating. Because that's part of the experience. That's exactly.
So, Varun, I wanted to know is what are the kind of experimentations you're doing in the Masque Lab now? I mean, what is the kind of work that we're seeing there? And you would definitely go back. Do you want to actually go to the lab and talk about this experimentation? Sure. So I am in a secret portion of the Masque Lab, which not everybody is fortunate enough to access, but we are. And behind me you can see these wonderful, I can get such amazing aromas and flavors that my mouth has actually begun watering. And you can see all kinds of bottles here with things being fermented. Aditi, I want to ask you, what was the idea for Masque Lab? What kind of made you set up a lab where there'll be so much of innovation and experimentation? Tell me about the Masque Lab and what do you do here?
So I'll start with why we created Masque Lab is because I think Masque pioneered what we did, and now I think it's become an industry norm where everybody is talking about local Indian ingredients. But I think Masque as a restaurant, we pioneered that when we started our commitment to only using Indian produce, whether it was the lesser known ingredients that we went foraging for, ingredients that grew in your backyard but you didn't know could make it into a commercial restaurant, or farm produce, and our commitment to really putting Indian ingredients, Indian flavors on a global map is what was the commitment. And I think the lab was created to double down on that idea where we could use those ingredients in its prime, whether it was pickling it, fermenting it, making our own kojis, garums, hot sauces, which then featured on the restaurant menu. And the lab is more like a freestyle kitchen and an experimental space where we also do a lot of private dinners. It's a chef's playground to also do a lot of fun dinners. And I think Varun would really be able to...
Like a chef's table,
Yeah, the seating is like that, but to add to what Aditi said, this is a flavor lab for us. Sometimes it's about highlighting something, but sometimes it's also about sustainability, where a lot of produce that would actually, byproducts, peels, can be converted, flavor can be extracted from them. They still have nutrients, right? So peels, so for example, when we were shutting for renovation, and you always keep a little extra backup just in case guests come extra. Whatever, instead of throwing all that prep, we kind of converted that into a miso. So the menu, my first menu after I took over, I've literally converted the full menu into a miso. These big things that you see, those are trims, green trims from the leeks, for example, that are not used most often in the kitchen. We're fermenting all of that, asparagus stems, to see what flavor we can derive and to use it on the next menu. that was the idea of the lab, to develop new flavors. Things we do here are some to obviously for the menu, some just to find out what can be done with that.
So sustainability is one thing that comes very strongly in everything that Masque does. So it's kind of, it's a philosophy that has been honed over the last 6 years. Could you tell us a little bit more about your sustainability initiatives? You did talk about the peels that you use to ferment, etc. But is there something more to it?
Yes, we try doing as much as we can. So even, for example, at the living room, the bar, all the vegetable trims are pureed and converted into chips to eat while you're as a bar snack. Like I said, peels and things are turned into these ferments, and we don't know what we're going to do with it. Once we ferment them, we taste them, and then we figure it out. But this is what we're trying to do. At least we're trying to see what flavors we can develop.
And I think from the very beginning, it has been towards being, a fully sustainable restaurant, or to try to be a zero waste restaurant. Of course, we aren't 100% there, but that's always been sort of the goal, the end goal.
Is it ever possible to be zero waste?
It is possible, but there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. For example, chefs that we're working with right now, we spoke about Matt Orlando. He's close to getting there. I think me as a chef and Masque as a restaurant has some time. We're working on getting there, but he's closer. And these collaborations that we do, they help us not only to learn food, but also learn from him. So this is the point also. So when we work with chefs like that, we get inspired. We learn from them. So last time he was here, when we were using fish, we've pressure cooked dal and things before. He pressure cooked all the bones of the fish and kind of made noodles with it. So exactly, it is people like him who teach us and who lead the way, and hopefully we lead the way for the country.
So you talked about techniques. Are there any other kind of techniques? You talked about pit cooking, for instance. You use that. Are there any other kind of techniques that are being experimented with in the kitchen?
Yeah, there's one right here that I'd like to highlight. So for me, this is obviously not how they must be doing it traditionally, but this is jugaad, how we have figured out to do it. So if you know the concept of black garlic, which is essentially cooking the vegetable or a fruit at about 50 to 60 degrees over a long period of time so the sugars caramelize. Only black garlic is a phenomenon around the world. What we've tried doing at the lab is doing it with a lot of different fruits and vegetables to see what flavor we can derive. So for this one, what we do is basically, so this is, like I said, jugaad. We figured out a home heat small fan that maintains this box at a 55 to 60 degree temperature, and these vegetables or fruits, whatever we put in there, are cooking at that temperature. So these are madras onions. It'll be slightly warm. So imagine these cook at 60 degrees for, depending on the size. So onions would, in my opinion, take about 45 days. So they're cooking full for throughout the day for 45 days. And then we use all of these. So maybe on a different menu we do something else. On the current menu we use blackened onions, blackened garlic and blackened sunchoke to kind of make a sauce for the lamb for one of the courses. So all of this is exactly why we started the lab, to see flavor, to develop new flavors. We've done a dessert with blackened mango. So the mango is cooked in this. It didn't taste anything like a mango, but it was a new flavor that we discovered.
We called it liquid effing gold.
It was.
It's gold.
3.5 months ka mehnat that the juices you collect.
But you're talking about 3.5. Sometimes during experimentations, even disasters happen. What have been your biggest disaster and what have you learned from it?
I wouldn't want to specify one, but what you learn from it is only to become successful you have to have failure, right? Otherwise you are not doing it correctly. Is that what they say? So there have been things that have not tasted good. We've tried corn and eggplant in this also, and I hope I wouldn't have to taste that. But it's not it's the part and parcel of experimentation. The way we make our menus and the way we do everything is basically trial and error. To give you an example, when we go foraging, Allegra is always there in the pocket, because what if you eat something wrong?
True.
You have to be open to try everything, but there are repercussions.
Yeah, and like we've become so used to that, even when we're walking through, we're picking up stuff and it goes straight in the mouth.
You have to have a backup plan always ready. So there are always failures.
So I want to come back to this rack, there's a lot of fermentation, etc. happening. You know, India has a very long tradition of fermentation, but so does a lot of other parts of Asia. So in terms of fermentation, what are the kind of techniques that you're using here? Is it traditional? Is it something new that you're doing here?
We do highlight all the pickling traditions of India. Like for example, we made a nimbu ka achar and then that was converted into a sorbet. So
a nimbu ka achar into a sorbet.
So it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
We do make achars the traditional Indian way also, but we do a lot of Japanese techniques, and garams are a little Roman technique of making flavor with bones. So misos are obviously Japanese technique inspired. Some pickling is Indian inspired. Garams, vinegars are more European inspired. So I would say we don't restrict ourselves to techniques and to areas. Flavor is what we're trying to get here, and to achieve that flavor, whatever works. If an Indian technique works, best. If a Japanese technique works, that's the best. You can see all the.
You can just get the aroma. My God!
So all the white, that means it's alive. It's multiplied.
It's multiplied. Okay.
And this is good bacteria, because this is the bacteria you get on koji.
Absolutely.
Koji is basically how they make sake and the fermentation.
So isn't fermentation like one of the best food to have for your gut, for your kind of a thing?
See, to be honest, they do say that with about kombucha and the new trends also, but what I believe is a little extra of anything is
It's too much. But I think I was reading somewhere and it said that the India's, that we are now giving up on our pickles because we think too much salt, too much this. But actually the whole idea of pickles was to help with the digestion. With the digestion, so a little bit of pickle with your food is good,
Even
right?
when we've been experimenting lately and we've been, chatting with a lot of different people in the food space. So I also spoke to someone from the Ayurveda angle with food, and they told me something really interesting, that how much ever I tell you this is good for you and this is bad for you, anything above limit is bad, however good that thing is. So everything you consume has to be in limit.
Absolutely.
The way meal plans and we eat and the rest of the world eats, everything is considered. That salt is always, that pickle is always needed, because what you're eating with that might have less or something. So this is to balance that out. So everything in balance is good.
And I think Indian cuisine in itself is so scientific
balanced,
and so well balanced.
So you mentioned Ayurveda. So is there something that you have done with the concepts of Ayurveda and kind of translated it onto your menu?
I don't think we've kind of translated, but what we've understood is the way they ask you to eat and what you consume. So we've kind of understood that to put into our menu planning. So it's never been highlighted, but we've understood the process behind it.
The concept.
Because obviously there's a whole, it's a practice of about thousands of years ago. So they must be doing something right. So we kind of understood that, because everyone says that lots of salt, lots of butter is not good. So just to understand what a balanced diet would be, what a traditional diet would be, that's why we've learned about Ayurveda.
So how does this work? Just for my understanding, the mother culture is where you keep deriving your newer from.
Yes, so it multiplies. So if I put one thing in this, it will multiply to 2.
So how long can you use the mother culture?
Technically, the mother culture is not supposed to be used.
Okay.
But if you cook it, you can.
Okay.
So vinegar mothers
what I mean to say is that how long can you use the same mother culture?
Forever.
Okay.
Now you see how many there are.
How many there are. Yeah.
Because we've not removed it. We just let it sit.
Okay.
Nothing's going to happen to it. The idea is, first, as of now we produce here for the menu.
Okay.
Eventually we will produce to sell in India as well.
Yeah.
Because
that's very important.
we should not only keep it all to ourselves.
Yeah.
We want everyone to have access to it.
I think also,
and I think that's what I think also COVID taught us, right? You have to democratize luxury.